Let me welcome attorney Demario Solomon Simmons. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. Welcome back.
What's up, Karen? It's so good to see you as always. I just love to sit here and watch your facial expression.
Okay. Hey, so first of all, you look dashing. You know, Lamont and I are doing Casual Fridays, and it's a holiday. But I guess you never sleep, and you don't stop working. So tell me what you are doing in Oklahoma.
Well, we're having this huge Juneteenth celebration tomorrow, expecting thousands of people. Reverend Al Sharpton is coming down giving the keynote. But the thing I'm focused on and we're focused on here is reparations for the Tulsa massacre. And, of course, Karen, I'm so excited you've partnered with us as we've launched our 501c3 Justice for Greenwood Foundation and our website, which is greenwoodreparations.com. That's greenwoodreparations.com. And this is so special and important at this time because this morning I was meeting with my client. We call her Mother Randall, Leslie Benefield Randall. She's 105 years old, and she remembers to this day the trauma that her and her family experienced. She remembers running for her life. She can still smell the burning homes and the burning flesh of her neighbors. She can still hear the screams and the gunshots. But the thing that she tells me all the time is she will never get out of her mind seeing the black bodies of her neighbors stacked up on the street. And today I talked to her as I normally do. And normally what she says to me, I say, hey, how you doing, Mother Randall? She'll say, hey, not too bad for a 105-year-old girl. But today I asked her, she said, I'm not doing too well today for a 105-year-old. And that really brought, sunk my stomach, my heart. I almost teared up, and I was about to get off the phone with her. And I said, Mother Randall, anything else? I said, I'm going to be talking to the people today at this big rally. Anything you want me to tell them? In a real small voice, she said, justice for Greenwood. So this is why this is so important. This is why we're so passionate about it, because these are real people. These are our fathers, our mothers, our grandmothers. These are real folks who had generational wealth stripped and stolen from them. And so we are exploring all of our legal options, which we'll be talking about more in the future. We also exploring legislation, and we have some pretty impressive people like you, Karen, and Brian Stevenson, and Professor Derek Hamilton, and the Human Rights Watch, and ACLU is all partnering with us to make this reparations happen, hopefully before Mother Randall's next birthday.
105 years old, 100 years ago, 99 years ago, May 31st, started. It was a two-day massacre, two-day fire bombs, government sanctioned. The National Guard participated in the decimation of one of the wealthiest black towns because there was oil. There was oil and years of jealousy at those wealthy black people. You grew up there.
Ownership. I'm sorry.
And land ownership. No, I was just going to say, I saw you on 60 Minutes. You were on 60 Minutes. And they did this feature this past Sunday on Tulsa. And you stood up in a church and you said, you went to school. And I think the teacher brought up this massacre. And you were like, that's not right. I'm from there. That is incorrect. You had not even heard about it because they don't teach it. They didn't teach it in the schools when you were growing up. Demario, talk a little bit about that and the lack of education, because there are a lot of people today that didn't know about Juneteenth, black and white.
That's right. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest pushes of why we're putting forward the greenwoodreparations.com, because part of our mission is to tell the true story of Greenwood and make sure that no one can be like I was. I'm a kid, like you said, I'm from North Tulsa. My family's been in Oklahoma since the 1830s. I went to middle school on Greenwood Avenue. And when I went to the University of Oklahoma in 1997, I'm in class, as you stated. And the guy was actually talking about Black Wall Street and all these great entrepreneurs, and J.B. Stratford, who owned the largest black-owned hotel in the nation at the time. I raised my hand. I said, man, I'm from Tulsa. That is not true. You're lying. You're lying to the people. And, of course, he corrected me. And ever since that day, I've been committed to learn as much as I can, not just about the massacre, but about Greenwood, how they were able to build Greenwood, and then how we can bring it back, both from a legal standpoint and from the mind standpoint. I talked about this yesterday on a panel. The question was, well, how was Greenwood able to be created and be so successful? And it was three major things. Number one, the people had a freedom mind state. They either were already in Oklahoma before it was a state, so they were living free in Indian territory, or they came into Oklahoma from the United States looking for a place to be free. So they had a freedom mind state. Number two, they had land ownership. Black people own about 3 million acres of land in northeast Oklahoma. And then number three, they had a collective spirit of cooperative economics understanding. Now, some of that was because of the segregation around them. But when you put those three things together, and remember the land ownership did include oil rights, because Oklahoma is full of oil, and most of that oil in northeast Oklahoma, black folks. Now, that's a whole other deal we can talk about. So this is why it's very important that we make sure that this narrative is told correctly, because right now, the same entities like the city of Tulsa that destroyed Greenwood, burnt Greenwood, killed our people, they're now trying to leverage the history of the massacre for their own glorification, or what we call glorified gentrification. So we want to make sure that we take back that narrative, we tell the story correctly, and above all, we get justice for people like Mother Randall.
Well, I'm committed. I've been doing this for 5 years, been talking about rebuilding Black Wall Street. We even have a promo that we've been running for the last 5 years, brick by brick. And so, yes, Mother Randall should not close her eyes from this earth until there's some justice. I know they're exhuming some bodies, too. That's what the 60 Minutes piece was about. Mass graves, because they estimated, 20 to 200 or 300 people were killed. But we know that number was quite greater than that. And we know how many billions of dollars was lost. But let's give those people a proper resting place, not in a mass grave, because they deserve better. And I'm grateful that you are. Go ahead. Talk to me.
Well, I was going to say, on that mass grave, that's another piece of this propaganda that the city and the powerful white elite are putting out there. They're not really looking for these mass graves, because at first they said this was a criminal investigation. But then every time they hit a roadblock, they said, oh, this is just historical. We can't get a warrant. We can't go here. So one of the things that we're going to call for is a real criminal investigation into the murders of our people. People like Dr. A.C. Jackson. This man was considered the finest, quote-unquote, Negro surgeon in the nation. This was a man that the Mayo brothers from the Mayo Clinic would come to Oklahoma to consult with. This is a man who created medical instruments that are still being used today. This man, Dr. A.C. Jackson, was murdered by the mob, shot with his hands up in the air, just like my client, Terrence Crutcher, and he was allowed to bleed out and over 7 hours while he laid in a concentration camp that they set up for us in the aftermath of the massacre. But now you have the city of Tulsa telling A.C. Jackson's story as if they are not the ones that did it. But when you talk about reparations, they say, oh, that's too divisive. Now, our mayor, he says it's too divisive for reparations, but he welcomes Trump to come into this city and bring everything that's going to be destructive to mostly black and brown people. He doesn't care about that. That's okay. When we're talking about making compensation to our people for what they did, they don't want to talk about that. And that's why GreenwoodReparations.com, and we need everybody to sign up. We need everybody to contribute to this and be a part of this. We have to make this happen. If we cannot make reparations happen in Tulsa for people who are still alive, we cannot make reparations happen for the larger scope of slavery and Jim Crow for all of us.
Now, to all the damage that was done, right, monetarily, however it's quantified, when we talk about reparations, what does that look like, especially for survivors since there are so few?
Sure, I'm glad you asked that. So we have a whole full reparations Marshall Plan, so to speak. I mean, just small things. Like one of the things we say is, why should someone like Mother Randall and her descendants have to pay city taxes, city fees, city utilities? We're saying that should be abated for the next 99 years, because for the last 99 years, she's paid in to somebody that harmed her. So that's just one of the things we talk about. We want to create a Tulsa Race Massacre Victims Compensation Fund, just like you guys have in New York for the September 11 Victim Compensation Fund. And we want a full audit on what was actually lost. We're not talking about just what the property was worth in 1921. We have economists that are working with us who are going to give us the full range of what is the wealth we're talking. We're talking about billions of dollars of wealth that was stolen. We're talking about intellectual property. Let me calm down.
Yeah.
I get so passionate about this.
Yeah.
No, man, it's infuriating.
When you go back to A.C. Jackson, let's just think about A.C. Jackson again. This guy had inventions, intellectual property. Well, when he was murdered and black people didn't have access to the courthouse, what happened to his intellectual property rights? Who has that? Who who's been benefiting for that for this last 99 years? We're coming for that. We want that. We want that to be provided back to his family. So one aspect of our project is finding descendants throughout what we call the Greenwood diaspora. We will disperse to Chicago, to New York, to Minneapolis, to Atlanta, all over the world because they were kicked our people out as refugees, exiles. And so we want to find these folks. If you go to our website, greenwoodreparations.com, you can list there, and we have a process that we can find out, yes, if you truly are a descendant, and we want to connect with you. So we have a full reparations program that we're going to spell out over the next couple of weeks so that question can be answered.
The whole time he's talking, I'm thinking Watchmen. The program that's laid out.
I was just going to say it, but I didn't know if it was too funny to mention Watchmen because that's how Angela found out that Luke Gossett Jr. was her granddaddy. Okay. Nothing? Okay.
I don't know.
DeMario's like, no, this too. You didn't watch Watchmen? You didn't watch Watchmen?
You know what?
What?
I didn't.
How could you
Watchmen.
not? What?
I'm gonna tell you why. Because Watchmen got it wrong.
Ooh.
I'm glad Watchmen did what it did because it exposed this history to the greater world. But Watchmen only starts from the point when the white people were able to get into Greenwood and do the destruction. But as Karen said earlier, it actually was a 2-day event because that first day, those brothers stood up and they fought off that white racist mob for 12 hours, and they sacrificed themselves for their women and children to try to get to safety. And the Watchmen do not show that. We didn't just go down without a fight. And that's why I'm so passionate and so excited to stand on these brothers' shoulders because they stood up. The whole fact that Greenwood happens because they said you're not going to lynch Dick Rowland in our town. So the Watchmen didn't tell the full story, and that's what we want to do. We want to tell our own story. We want to tell the full story from the people that lived it and the people that I spent time with, people like Otis Clark, people like Olivia Hooker, people like Mother Randall. Tell the true story, the real story, and that's what we can do through GreenwoodReparations.com and with you guys' help.
DeMario, you'll be back many, many times over because this is going to be until it gets done. We're not going to stop. Justice for Greenwood. GreenwoodReparations.com is the website. Brother DeMario, thank you for being here. DeMario Solomon Simmons. You can follow him as well at Attorney. Is it Attorney Solomon Simmons or Attorney?
Attorney DeMario.
Okay, that's even easier. With a D-A, Mario.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for being here.